Here comes the question. The trigger for the dragon of anxiety is option 1, perceived injustice, option 2, a real threat, and option 3, a potential threat, a probable threat. Let me put this a little bit more concretely in an example that you might be able to understand. And that's where anxiety is a very subtle dragon. Unlike the more dramatic fear, anxiety is quite a different monster. It just never goes away. It's there. So you might be thinking, what on earth could be good about a monster like this? Don't worry, I shall redeem this monster as well. So that's an example of how anxiety can actually be a useful dragon. Now, when does anxiety become a problematic dragon? Stop fearing this dragon and start living with it, embrace it, tame it. Think about taming the dragon of anxiety.
Hi, welcome to Soch with hSA, where philosophy, practical theology, pedagogy, and psychiatry meet. We are continuing our series on Tame Your Dragon, and today we're going to see on another emotion, anxiety. And let's see what Dr. Johan is wanting to talk.
All right, viewers, today we're going to continue the Tame Your Dragon series, and we're moving to another negative emotion or another dragon. So, today's dragon is a very subtle monster. We have to be very careful of this fellow. He's not as dramatic as the other two we looked at earlier. Remember, we looked at the dragon of anger and we looked at the dragon of fear. Today's dragon is anxiety. I think a lot of you must be thinking, oh my, this is the dragon for me. Because all of us feel anxious all the time for various things. So let's look a little bit in some depth at this dragon and see how we can work on it. Now, to understand anxiety well, it's important to also have an idea of anxiety's famous cousin, the one we did last video, fear. So we're not repeating what we did with fear. You can go back and watch the previous episode on fear. But anxiety and fear are kind of like cousins. So they have some similarities and overlaps and many things which are in common. But no worries. Don't get anxious. Let's move on. As usual, we'll start with a question. There'll be some options. You think through the options and we'll give you the answer. And we'll round off with a reflection at the end and give you some nice music. So if you want to hear the nice music, you've got to stay all the way to the end of this video. And that's a special reward for you. All right, here comes the question. So in the spirit of the dragon taming that we've been doing, we will continue the questions in a similar manner. The trigger for the dragon of anxiety is option 1, perceived injustice. Hope you got that. Option 1, perceived injustice. Option 2, a real threat. So a real threat in front of you. And option 3, a potential threat, a probable threat. Think about that for a little bit. And in the meantime, let's hear what our friends here have to say.
Yeah,
I think he's been looking at our anxiety, no?
Yeah.
And he's giving us some easy way to get the answers right. So I think we're agreed on this. We're going for option 3, potential or probable threat.
Okay, it's nice to see these two unanimous for a change. And for a change, they are both correct. Okay, they've gone for option 3. Now, I made it very easy for them because option 1 and 2 were already ruled out from previous episodes. You can look at that later. Right. Perceived injustice is the classic trigger for anger. So that's out. Real threat is the classic trigger for fear. And that's also out. So obviously, There's only one answer left, and I'm glad these two have been listening and they are correct. The classic trigger for anxiety is a potential threat or a probable threat. So, this needs a little bit of explanation. What is this word potential? Now, those of you who are good at science, there'll be engineers among you and physicists and others. Uh, you understand potential energy versus kinetic energy. You get that difference. So potential energy is the energy that the object potentially has, but has not yet converted it into movement or work yet. Now kinetic energy is the energy which is involved in motion or in work of that kind. So we understand that from science, and we can take a similar analogy here in looking at the emotions from a psychological perspective. So a potential threat is a threat that has not yet been realized. It's not yet real. In fact, it's only a probability. Okay, so what does that even mean? It's something that's in my head. It's something that may be there in the future or may be there in reality, but it's not right now in front of me, concrete and embodied right here in front of me. It's not like that. So, this is how anxiety is different from its more dramatic cousin, fear. All right. So, the dragon of fear is triggered when there's an actual threat in front of you. Right. It's there now. It's there in front of you or very much around you. It's a very real concrete threat. The dragon of anxiety is triggered by a probable threat, which isn't here right now in front of you, but which could materialize in the future or in some other related circumstance. Now, it's very important to understand that these threats need not be illogical, they need not be irrational. There's a tendency sometimes for us to think that, oh, if something is not really there in front of us, means the person is crazy, he's irrational, he's illogical. Now, that's not necessarily true. These probabilities may actually be very logical, they may be extremely rational. And in fact, that's part of the problem. It's because they are so likely that they induce this kind of anxiety within you. All right, and that's an important point to remember. So that's a kind of like the explanation of the answer I was giving you. But now let me put this a little bit more concretely in an example that you might be able to understand. Now, those of you who watched the previous video on fear will remember the snake on the road example, right? We talked about how if you're walking on the road and you see a snake in front of you, the emotion that is triggered inside you is fear. Now, that's very justified in that situation. But now let me extend that story a little bit more and you'll see my point. Let's say you got rid of that snake. Either you called a friend or someone else and you managed to kill it, or you somehow managed to drive around it and move away or something. That snake is neutralized. It's no longer a problem for you. You're no longer frightened. So fear has been taken care of because the threat has been neutralized. All right. Think about the next day now. You're walking out of your house again. It's another bright, beautiful morning. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, what if that snake comes back again? What if I'm walking on the road and he shows up again? What do I do? You see the difference? Unlike fear, where there was a real snake there, this snake is a probable snake in anxiety. It's a potential snake. Now, what on earth do you do with a potential snake? Unlike the real snake, you can't neutralize this snake. A real snake can be killed or captured or avoided. What on earth can you do for a potential snake? You can't kill it, you can't capture it, you can't avoid it. It's there in your mind at all times. It can pop up at any point and it's going to just be around. It just never goes away. So you see the difference there? So it's kind of like a snake that never goes away. and it keeps causing this anxiety over long periods of time, and then it can really hamper you. One is it's very distressing, and the other thing is, if you're not careful, it might even cause dysfunction. Now, you'd be very scared to go out of your house. That's one thing. Even though there's no snake really there, you're scared to go out of your house. So there's distress. There's also dysfunction. You may not be able to get to work, or you might find it very difficult to do things. So you see how this potential snake is actually wreaking much more havoc in your life than the real snake was. And that's where anxiety is a very subtle dragon. Unlike the more dramatic fear, which is quite easy to pick up, nobody misses fear. Number one. Number two, it's easy to neutralize. Once you neutralize the threat, fear is gone. Anxiety is quite a different monster. It just never goes away. It's there. So you might be thinking, what on earth could be good about a monster like this? So don't worry, I shall redeem this monster as well. The advantage of this dragon, the dragon of anxiety, is that if it's on your side, it can actually help you to be more prepared about things. Let me give you a simple example. Let's say there's a child preparing for an exam next week, board exam, let's say, grade 10 or grade 12. Now, usually a child who is slightly anxious about his exam is more likely to study better. Why? Because he's thinking through the possibilities. What if a tough paper comes and I don't do well? What if I don't study and an easy question comes and I don't answer it simply because I have not studied? What if I get low marks and my parents are unhappy or my friends are unhappy with me? So these are all very logical, rational, real, potential outcomes. But because the child is thinking about these possibilities, it's likely he's going to be more motivated to study. He'll end up performing better. Now imagine there's a child who doesn't care. It doesn't matter whether I fail or not fail, or big deal, it's just an exam. Let me just do what I like and go and write the exam. Big deal. It's very obvious which child is more likely to do better. The child who was a little anxious about his exam is more likely to do better than the child who doesn't care. You could think of the same thing in terms of any kind of performance, a speech or a musical performance or another play or whatever it is, or an interview. Anyone who's a little anxious will prepare better and more likely perform better than someone who doesn't care. So that's an example of how anxiety can actually be a useful dragon. Now, when does anxiety become a problematic dragon? Number one, when you're anxious about things you don't need to be anxious about. So the trigger is an unnecessary trigger. So the probabilities that are being generated in your head are not logical, or they're not necessary, or they're not at all warranted. So unnecessary trigger. The next one is the trigger is all right, but your response is disproportionate. Now, this might sound very similar to what we said in fear, and I think it's pretty much the same. You can either be triggered with the wrong trigger or an unnecessary trigger, or your response might be disproportionate. Either way, too much of anxiety is a problem. But if anxiety is tamed and used in a good way, a little bit of anxiety is actually something that will boost your performance and actually help you to do better. Now, if someone is really struggling with anxiety, it can really wear you out. It can really cause lots of problems. And it can make you lose sleep. It can make you dysfunctional. It can make you really distressed and really cause problems in your interpersonal relationships and all sorts of things. That's the kind of monster anxiety can be and sometimes is in many people's lives. Help is available for such people. There are people who are trained to help you deal with such things. You can reach out to us as well, and we can guide you and help you on how you can get helped if that's a problem for you. Most people don't have anxiety to that kind of level. And for most people, remember, anxiety is normal. But there are those who might be struggling too much with it. You might need some extra help. Please do reach out for help. and help is available. But for most people, you won't really need help. All you need to do is stop fearing this dragon and start living with it, embrace it, tame it. Remember, you can't kill the probable snake, but you can tame the probable snake. All right, so that's something we need to think about. Think about taming the dragon of anxiety.
Okay, so we've hopefully tamed all of our dragons, and that's been an interesting discussion. So don't keep yourself anxious to know where you can learn more about these topics. We have the applications open for the June-July batch of Understanding the Psyche live course. So reduce your anxiety, reduce and know how to deal with these emotions. That these are the topics that we discuss in our course also. So register for the live course if you're interested in that Understanding the Psyche live course. The link is there in the description. We also have a self-paced version, Understanding Child Development for Teachers and Parents. It contains 2 courses, um, the Psychosocial Development course as well as the Cognitive and Moral Development course. So both of these courses for rupees 1000 inclusive of GST. So you have 2 options to reduce your anxiety. You can come for the live course or you can take the self-paced courses. So reduce your anxiety, learn how to tame all of these dragons, and we hope it will be useful for you.
All right, viewers, it's time for our reflection now. Think about taming the dragon of anxiety. Think about the triggers of anxiety. How is anxiety different from fear? What do you do with a probable dragon? One that you can't kill or capture. How do you tame that guy?
Dr. Praveen, is that at all, or what to expect in our next video?
Again, viewers will have to wait and watch. Is it going to be no dragon, monster? I don't know. We'll have to see for the next video. But there will be a next video. And thanks again, viewers, for joining us on Soch with hSA.
Goodbye, viewers. Till we see you in our next video, it's hSA signing off. Goodbye and God bless. Stay healthy, stay soching.